It was a bitterly cold evening when the train screeched to a stop at a lonely western station, its whistle echoing across the endless plains. Passengers hurried off, their laughter and chatter filling the air, but one young woman stepped down slowly, clutching her carpet bag as though it was her only anchor in the world. Her name was Clara. She had never been farther than her small village back east, and now she stood in the middle of nowhere, a trembling virgin bride who had promised to marry a man she had never met. Fear knotted her chest as she pulled her shawl tighter, her mind whispering, "What if he's cruel? What if I've made the worst mistake of my life?" Clara had signed the letters with shaky hands months earlier. A mail-order bride, that was the only way she could escape the poverty and loneliness of her past. But now that she was here, doubt swallowed her. She imagined a rough rancher, hardened by years of work and loss, perhaps one who would see her only as a tool, not a wife. She almost turned back, but then she remembered there was nowhere else to go. Her parents were gone. Her home was gone. All she had was the promise she had made to a stranger in Texas. The station platform cleared quickly, and at last she saw him, John McAllister, the rancher who had written her. Tall, broad-shouldered, with sun-worn skin and eyes that carried both strength and sorrow, he didn't smile when their gazes met. His hat tilted low, his mouth set in a firm line, as though even hope itself was something too fragile to touch. Clara's hands grew damp as he walked toward her. He tipped his hat, voice deep but hesitant. "You must be Clara." She nodded, her throat too tight to speak. The ride back to his ranch was quiet, the wagon wheels crunching over gravel. Clara's heart pounded with every bump in the road. She dared to glance at him, his jaw was sharp, his hands calloused, and his silence heavy. "This is it," she thought. "This is the man I belong to now." But before despair could tighten its grip further, a soft voice broke through the night. "Papa. Papa, you're home." A little girl, no older than 6, came running from the porch when the wagon stopped. Her dark curls bounced as she flung herself into John's arms. For the first time, Clara saw his face soften, a smile breaking through like sunlight after storm clouds. He held the child close, his voice warm now. "Ellie, I missed you." Clara froze, her breath catching. She hadn't known there was a child. She hadn't prepared herself for this. She was about to step off the wagon when Ellie turned and looked up at her with curious, shining eyes. Then came the words that melted Clara's fear into tears she fought to hide. "Papa," Ellie said, tugging his sleeve, "is she gonna be my mama? Can you be mama?" Clara's heart shattered and healed all in one beat. The innocence in the girl's voice, the desperate longing behind it, struck her harder than anything else. Ellie wasn't just curious, she was yearning for something she didn't have, a mother's love. And in that instant, Clara's terror eased. She realized she hadn't just come for survival. She had been called here for something greater. A life on the ranch was not easy. The first weeks were filled with challenges: early mornings feeding chickens, long days learning how to ride a horse, awkward dinners where silence weighed heavier than words. John was kind but distant, a man still carrying the grief of losing his first wife during Ellie's birth. He kept his heart locked away, and Clara often cried quietly into her pillow, wondering if she would ever be enough for him, but Ellie changed everything. The little girl followed Clara everywhere, asking questions, holding her hand, curling into her lap when thunderstorms shook the house. Slowly, Clara began to smile more, to feel needed, to let the ache of her own fears fade in the warmth of the child's trust. And slowly, ever so slowly, John began to notice. One evening, Clara sat sewing by the fire while Ellie slept in her arms. John entered, tired from a long day, and stopped in the doorway. For a moment, he just stared, his eyes softening as if he were seeing a miracle. Clara glanced up, nerves sparking, but instead of turning away, John came closer. His voice was rough, almost breaking. "You're good with her. She hasn't laughed this much since," he trailed off, unable to finish, but Clara knew what he meant. She met his gaze and whispered, she needed someone to love her. And so did I. That was the night something changed. Walls began to fall. John started speaking more at supper, even teasing gently. He showed her how to rope a calf, how to guide a horse without fear. Clara learned his quiet strength wasn't coldness, it was the shield of a man who had known too much loss. And one day, when Ellie ran ahead into the fields and John caught Clara by the hand, neither of them pulled away. The hardest test came when a storm swept through the ranch, flooding the barn and threatening to wash away the livestock. Clara worked beside John all night, mud on her dress, hands blistered, heart pounding. At dawn, exhausted but alive, they stood together watching the sunrise over the wet fields. He turned to her then, voice steady but raw. "I thought I'd never find joy again. But you've brought life back to this home." Clara's eyes brimmed with tears as he reached for her hand. For the first time, she felt not like a stranger, but like a wife. In time, love blossomed, quiet but steady, like wildflowers after rain. Clara was no longer the terrified girl who stepped off that train. She was a mother to Ellie, a partner to John, and a woman who had discovered her strength in the face of fear. And when Ellie, nestled in Clara's lap one evening, whispered, "Mama, sing me a lullaby," Clara knew the journey had been worth every trembling step. She sang softly, her voice carrying love, courage, and the promise of a new beginning. The story leaves us with this truth: sometimes life leads us down roads we never expected, and sometimes fear is just the doorway to the family we were always meant to find.